Hi, I'm Ryan Wexelblatt, ADHD Dude. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a school social worker, certified ADHD professional, and I'm also a dad. First thing, meet your child at their executive functioning age, not their chronological age. Here's what I mean by executive functioning age. So, for example, if you have an 8-year-old, your 8-year-old's executive functioning age is more like 5 or 6, because the prefrontal cortex, that front part of your brain and your forehead that controls executive functioning, it's developing slower than the rest of the brain. So what we have to do is modify our expectations for our kids to meet them at their executive functioning age. Understand that their emotional regulation skills, their executive function skills, and possibly their social cognitive skills, meaning how do they think in a social context, is 2 to 3 years behind their chronological age. Here's something really important I want you to understand. Executive functioning age has nothing to do with intelligence. So if you ever say, he's so smart, I don't understand why he does this or why he always forgets this, intelligence has nothing to do with executive functioning age at all. Intelligence really has nothing to do with ADHD, so keep that in mind. Teach situational awareness. I call this reading the field with kids. Situational awareness means how do we figure out what's happening at a certain time, at a certain place, and what we're supposed to be doing based on the context of the situation. So kids with ADHD have difficulty with situational awareness because it requires attention, and it requires attention to all these different variables going on in the environment, putting them together and make meaning of them. So let me give you an example. If your son or daughter has ever walked into the street without looking, it's because they're not using situational awareness. So what we have to teach kids is how to read the field. So here's how you teach read the field. You help your son or daughter understand what's happening in the context of a situation. So let's say, for example, you're going into the supermarket. Before you go to the supermarket, here's what the conversation would look like. So we're going into the supermarket. It's going to be busy because it's Saturday. What's expected is that you stay with me and you don't, run 3 aisles ahead. We also have to be aware of the other people around us and make sure we're not getting in their way when they're trying to get something. So what we're doing is we're teaching what to expect in the situation. Before you would cross the street, say, so it's read the field right now, figure out what you're supposed to be doing. The idea is that he or she is learning to, look both ways, check out for traffic. And why I'm saying read the field and not, look both ways is because you want him or her to develop their self-directed talk. When you say look both ways, that's called prompting. Prompting doesn't help you learn to use your internal dialogue. Saying read the field helps to use internal dialogue because they have to think for themselves. So the way to teach read the field is you can have them watch my read the field video in the Dude Talk playlist, and when you go somewhere, say read the field right now, figure out what you're supposed to be doing, or we're about to cross the street, read the field and figure out what you're supposed to be doing. This is a term I use all the time with kids. It's really important to help teach situational awareness and to help them build their self-directed talk around situational awareness. Allow time for unstructured play and hanging out that you're not directing or supervising. The way all kids develop executive function and social skills is through unstructured, imaginative play, where adults are not directing or kind of hovering over the situation. I want you to think about when you were younger and you would go outside and play, or maybe when you were in middle school, you would go and hang out with your friends. That's actually how you develop executive function skills and social skills organically. So when parents are always hovering over kids, and saying do this, don't do that, or when kids are overscheduled with a million activities and they don't have that time to just, play or hang out without the use of screens, I should mention, they're not organically developing their executive function and social skills. So please allow plenty of time for unstructured play or unstructured hanging out without screens that you are not hovering over or directing. The other thing I want to tell you about this is, a lot of times parents have this, belief that, well, the world's a dangerous place today. It's much more dangerous when I was growing up. This is really important to know. That is not based in any data. In fact, it's the opposite. Kids are safer than they ever have been before. Every generation thinks the world is more dangerous now than they were growing up. It's not factual. Cultivating flexibility and not accommodating inflexibility. One of the biggest problems I see in families of kids with ADHD is that they accommodate their child's inflexibility, which causes inflexibility to grow. One of the things that you can read about, on my Facebook page is I talk about what's called the inflexibility trap. Around age 14 or 15, I see a lot of kids whose inflexibility has been accommodated their whole life become more inflexible. The way we cultivate flexibility is giving them purposeful recognition for times they are showing flexibility. We want to point out every time they are showing flexibility of any kind and giving it purposeful praise, meaning you're acknowledging the specific thing they did, because the more they can get praise and recognition for being flexible, the more it's going to help them generalize a skill. And please remember, don't accommodate inflexibility, because it only causes inflexibility to grow. Shifting from prompt dependence towards independence. It's very common in families of kids with ADHD to do a tremendous amount of prompting. The problem with that is when you are always prompting your child, you're acting as his or her executive functioning, and you're cultivating over dependence. So what we want to do is we want to shift from prompt dependence towards independence to help them learn to use their own executive functioning and to help with their executive function skill development. One of the main ways we do this is by the way we use language. I have a whole webinar series called Executive Function Crash Course for Parents that teaches you how to move your child from being prompt dependent towards being independent, okay? And it'll be really helpful in helping you with this process. The one thing I want to tell you is, keeping your child prompt dependent on you, which is something I know that no parent wants to do intentionally, it's really not helpful for kids. And what happens is, for kids who have been prompt dependent on their parents their whole life, when they go to college or whatever they're doing after high school, they tend to have a very hard time because their parents have been acting as their executive functioning for their whole life. Some kids develop independence naturally through motivation, but we still have to help shift them from prompt dependence towards independence. But please keep all these things in mind, because they're the most important things I think are going to help you, help your son or daughter, and they're things that parents are almost never taught when they get a diagnosis. Hope this is helpful. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.